spoken in a quiet, steady voice, not to impress, but to awaken. Most people don't ruin their lives all at once. They do it slowly, by what they ignore. Not by the storms that hit, but by the mornings they sleep through. Not by the big failures, but by the small things they convince themselves don't matter. You see, the life you dream of, it isn't waiting in some far-off tomorrow. It's quietly hiding in the ordinary routines you keep avoiding today. We like to believe our future will be built by a single grand moment, a lucky break, a life-changing opportunity, a sudden shift. But the truth, the future is always being built in silence, brick by brick, in how you show up when no one's watching. Have you noticed how easy it is to dismiss the small things? That 10-minute walk you said you'd take, that book you said you'd read, that morning you promised you'd wake up early and start again. They all feel like nothing. Until one day you look back and realize they were everything. The gap between the life you have and the life you want isn't a lack of potential. It's the distance between your intentions and your follow-through. And that distance is made up of routine. Here's the part most people never understand. Discipline is not a punishment. It's a quiet act of self-respect. It's how you tell your future self, I haven't forgotten you. But when you avoid routine, when you keep skipping what matters, delaying what heals, avoiding what strengthens, you're not just staying the same. You're choosing to decay slowly, invisibly. So ask yourself, what routines have you been avoiding, not because they don't matter, but because they do? What daily acts feel too small to change your life, but might just be the seeds of everything you're hoping for? The gym isn't just a place, it's a promise. The journal isn't just paper, it's perspective. The early morning isn't just a time, it's a chance to become who you said you would be. Consistency isn't glamorous. It doesn't get applause. It doesn't feel heroic. But it is holy, because the person you become is not sculpted in intensity, but shaped in repetition. Not by what you do once in a while, but by what you do again and again and again. So don't chase motivation. Chase rhythm. Chase the quiet. Chase the small, steady rituals that slowly build a future worth living. Every day you do what you said you would, even just one thing. You shrink the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. And one day, the life you dreamed of won't feel far away. It will feel familiar, because you lived it, one choice at a time. And when that day comes, it won't be because you found a shortcut. It'll be because you found yourself in the routines you once ignored. And you kept showing up, even when it wasn't easy. Especially then. We are often fooled by the headlines, by the applause. The world celebrates the big wins, the viral moment, the sudden success, the overnight transformation. And yet, if you pull back the curtain on any lasting achievement, what you'll find isn't a burst of brilliance, but a rhythm. A quiet commitment, a pattern of small, unremarkable choices, repeated over time. It's not the lightning bolt that changes your life. It's the steady drip of water, the one that carves canyons. So ask yourself, what are the small things you do when no one's watching? What habits live in the background of your days, shaping you, quietly, silently? Because here's the truth, your future is not built in loud moments of glory. It's formed in the invisible hours, when you decide to show up, even when no one claps. We're taught to chase the extraordinary, to wait for inspiration, to believe that life changes in a flash. But the soul doesn't evolve like that. Real transformation, the kind that lasts, doesn't happen in epiphanies. It happens in repetition. Consider a garden. It isn't created by planting one perfect seed. It grows by tending to it daily, watering, weeding, showing up in the heat and in the cold. The results may be invisible for a while, but beneath the soil, roots are forming. So it is with your life. Every morning you rise early. Instead of snoozing, you're becoming more disciplined. Every walk you take, instead of scrolling, you're becoming more grounded. Every time you write, read, reflect, even when you don't feel like it, you're honoring a future version of yourself who will thank you. The greatest mistake we make is waiting for the motivation to begin. Motivation is a spark, but routine is the firewood. Without a system, without daily rituals, the spark fades. But with rhythm, Even a small flame can become a steady source of light. The danger of waiting for inspiration is that you miss the power of ordinary effort. What if, instead of chasing brilliance, you chased faithfulness? What if your life became a quiet symphony of kept promises? The gym sessions you didn't skip, the journal entries you didn't miss, the meals you cooked with care, the calls you made to people who mattered. Wouldn't that build something deeper than a flash of genius? We don't remember this because the world is loud, but the soul speaks in whispers. It responds to consistency, not performance. There's an old saying, we become what we repeatedly do, but I would add, we become what we repeatedly choose when no one is looking. If your routines are chaotic, your life will follow. If your routines are intentional, your life will grow direction. Don't underestimate the power of one tiny habit, repeated daily. A seed planted again and again will bloom in time, not instantly, but inevitably. We think destiny is a mystery, but it isn't. It's a pattern, and that pattern is always shaped by your routines. So don't look for one perfect day, look for one repeated action. Don't look for magic, look for momentum, because in the end, you won't be remembered for the one time you shined. You'll be remembered by yourself, most of all for the quiet way you kept showing up, even when it was hard. Especially then, the future isn't waiting to be found. It's waiting to be built in the quiet rituals you practice today. Most of us are not haunted by what we failed to know. We are haunted by what we knew and chose not to do. Regret rarely arrives with a loud knock. It tiptoes in quietly, years later, in the quiet spaces of your life, when you're brushing your teeth, staring at the ceiling, or watching someone else live a life you once imagined for yourself. And often it whispers a simple question: why didn't I just begin? You see, avoidance feels harmless in the moment. You put something off, delay a decision, postpone a habit, tell yourself tomorrow, but days have a way of turning into years when you're not paying attention, and what once was just a small task you skipped becomes a life you never lived. We like to believe we're avoiding discomfort, but what we're really doing is borrowing regret from the future. Think about the things you're avoiding now, the conversation you don't want to have, the habit you keep meaning to start, the dream you keep saying someday to. What if those aren't just chores you're postponing, but cracks in the foundation of the person you're becoming? Avoidance is a silent architect. While you distract yourself, it builds walls around the very life you were meant to live. We tell ourselves, it's safer not to begin, safer not to try. But no path is truly free of pain, the pain of discipline, or the pain of regret. One heals, the other haunts. So which are you choosing? It's not the big dramatic failures that wound us most. It's the small persistent betrayals of ourselves. The daily decision not to move. The choice to stay quiet when something inside us wants to speak. The way we numb ourselves with distractions. Not because we don't care, but because we care so deeply that it scares us. Avoidance isn't laziness, it's fear, wearing the mask of comfort. And fear is patient. It will let you waste years believing the lie that there will always be time later. But time is not a guarantee, it's a gift, and one that expires moment by moment. If you want to meet your future without regret, you have to live today with present. You have to stop running from the things that matter just because they make you uncomfortable. Growth doesn't happen in the soft, familiar places. It happens in the stretch, the awkward, uncertain, trembling moments where you choose to step forward, even while your mind is screaming to step back. And that doesn't mean perfection. It means honesty. It means facing what you fear and doing one small thing anyway. That book you've avoided writing, that class you were scared to take, that apology you never made, they're not just unfinished tasks. They're fragments of your freedom, waiting to be claimed. The tragedy of regret is not what you did wrong, it's what you left undone. And the beauty of life is that right now, in this breath, you can choose something different. You can begin. You can decide that your future self is worth the discomfort of today. You can trade temporary comfort for long-term peace. You can stop avoiding and start becoming. Because in the end, regret isn't just about time lost. It's about the self you abandoned along the way. Don't wait until the mirror reflects a stranger to remember what you once wanted. The life you want is still available, but it will not wait forever. Let this truth stay with you. Every moment of avoidance today adds weight to tomorrow, and every act of courage today makes tomorrow lighter to carry. There's a quiet promise you've made to yourself. You may not remember the exact moment, but somewhere along the way, in a moment of hope or pain or longing, you imagined a better version of you. A life that felt fuller, freer, more honest. A future shaped not by circumstance, but by choice. That version of you still waits. Not impatiently, but faithfully. And the bridge between who you are and who you're becoming is discipline. Not punishment, not pressure. Discipline in its truest form is a form of love. It's how you say to yourself, I haven't forgotten the future I said I wanted. We often think of discipline as harsh, rigid, restrictive, but that's only because we've confused it with force. Real discipline doesn't come from shame. It grows from devotion. Devotion to who you could become if you just kept showing up. Ask yourself, what if discipline wasn't a burden, but a kind of sacred agreement between the present you and the future you? What if each time you honored your habit, each time you chose the harder right over the easier wrong, you were placing bricks in the foundation of a life that could stand strong through any storm? Because the future doesn't respond to our wishes, it responds to our preparation. You don't become more patient by wishing for calm days. You become more patient by practicing stillness when your thoughts race. You don't become stronger by reading about strength. You become stronger by lifting what's heavy, even when it hurts. And you don't build the life you want by dreaming harder. You build it by waking up when you said you would, by finishing what you start, by doing what you said you'd do, even when the excitement fades. That is discipline, and that is freedom. It's the paradox most people never understand. Discipline doesn't trap you, it frees you. It frees you from regret. It frees you from chaos. It frees you from becoming a prisoner of your moods, your excuses, your comfort. Without discipline, you are at the mercy of your lowest instincts, but with it, you rise. Slowly, quietly, consistently, you rise because you're no longer waiting to feel like it. You show up because you made a promise, and promises matter, especially the ones you make to yourself. And no, it won't always feel good. Some days you'll resent the routine. You'll want ease, softness, escape, and that's okay. You're human, but you must remember, the cost of discipline is discomfort now. The cost of abandoning it is discomfort forever. So what kind of discomfort are you willing to carry? There's a certain dignity in doing what must be done, even when no one sees it, even when no one claps, because you'll know. And that self-trust, that's how self-worth is built. You don't become confident by accident. You become confident by keeping your word again and again until your soul believes you. That is what discipline gives you. Not just results, but respect. Not just achievement, but alignment. So when you struggle, and you will, don't ask, why is this so hard? Ask, what am I building by showing up anyway? Because you are always building something. Every choice, every effort, every act of discipline lays down the path your future self will walk. And someday you'll look back with quiet gratitude, not just for what you built, but for who you became along the way. Let this truth live in you. Discipline is not about forcing a future. It's about honoring it, one quiet, consistent act at a time. There comes a time in every life when the weight feels too much. The days blur, the purpose thins. You stare at the ceiling and wonder, is this it? You imagine escaping it all, starting over in a new city, a new job, a new relationship. The fantasy is tempting. Burn it all down, begin again. But what if you don't need a new life? What if you just need a new rhythm? We've been taught that transformation must be dramatic, that change must be loud, that reinvention requires throwing everything away. But the soul doesn't crave chaos. It craves alignment, not a different path, but a steadier step. Think of your life like music. When it feels off, our instinct is to switch the song, but sometimes all it takes is adjusting the tempo, slowing the beat, finding the part of the melody that got lost in the noise. Rhythm is what gives your life structure, not rigidity, but flow. It's how you hold space for what matters before the world fills your day with noise. A new life doesn't begin by booking a flight or quitting your job. It begins the moment you wake up and decide, I will live today with more intention than I did yesterday. You don't need to move across the country to feel free. You don't need to leave everything to find meaning. You need to reclaim your mornings. You need to protect your evening. You need to recenter the things that make you feel alive, not just productive. When was the last time you paused before reaching for your phone? When was the last time you walked without a destination, or sat in silence without trying to fill it? Sometimes the problem isn't your life, it's the way you're moving through it. Pace matters. If you live at the speed of urgency, your life becomes a blur of to-do lists and unmet expectations. But if you choose rhythm, slow, steady, sacred rhythm, your life becomes a sanctuary, a rhythm that nourishes the mind, a rhythm that honors the body, a rhythm that allows space for your spirit to speak. You can't hear yourself when your life is loud. The beauty of rhythm is that it's within your control. Even when everything around you feels uncertain, you can still wake at the same time. You can still stretch, breathe, write, reflect, walk. These are not luxuries, they are lifelines. And no, it won't feel magical at first. It may even feel frustrating. But with rhythm comes restoration, not all at once, but quietly. Over time, you'll begin to notice it in the way your thoughts settle, in the way your breath deepens, in the way your sense of purpose stops feeling like a question and starts feeling like a quiet knowing. Because when you live with rhythm, life doesn't have to be perfect to feel meaningful. It just has to feel yours. And when your days begin to flow with a steadiness that matches your inner truth, you no longer feel the urge to run away, not because life gets easier, but because you become anchored. So instead of asking, how do I change my life? Try asking, how do I change my rhythm? What one small shift can you make today that brings you closer to the person you miss being? What do you need less of? Not because it's bad, but because it's drowning your inner music. What do you need more of? Not because the world expects it, but because your soul does. You don't have to start over. You just have to start moving differently. And when you do, you'll find that the life you thought you needed to chase was quietly waiting for you to slow down long enough to hear its rhythm again. Let this truth settle in your spirit. You don't need a new life. You need a gentler pace, a deeper breath, and the courage to choose rhythm over rush. We live in a world obsessed with more hustle, more ambition, more output. And yet more effort isn't always the answer, because the life you want doesn't need more from you. It needs deeper loyalty to what already matters, not louder striving, but quieter staying. It's easy to mistake exhaustion for progress, to believe that if we just push a little harder, run a little faster, sacrifice a little more, we'll finally get there. But what if there is not a place you reach, but a rhythm you return to? We don't often talk about loyalty, especially not to ourselves, but loyalty isn't just about relationships with others. It's about the relationship you have with your own becoming. Are you loyal to the future you said you wanted? Are you loyal to the version of you that whispered in the dark, I think I'm meant for something more? Not grander but truer. Loyalty looks like showing up on days when it would be easier to quit. It looks like keeping the small promises, even when no one notices. It looks like nurturing the vision you hold quietly in your heart, even when the world is pulling you in 100 louder directions. There's a soft discipline in loyalty, not fueled by fear, not enforced by pressure, but grounded in love. In devotion, it's the slow-burning commitment to return again and again to what matters, even when you're tired, even when progress feels invisible, because real growth is quiet. The flower doesn't bloom because it forces itself to. It blooms because it stays loyal to the sun. Even when the clouds roll in, you don't need to push harder, you need to stay longer. Stay faithful to your morning routine, stay connected to your values, stay rooted in your truth. Even when it's quieter than the noise around you. The truth is, most people don't fail because they didn't try hard enough. They fail because they kept abandoning what worked the moment it got boring, slow, or lonely. But life isn't a highlight reel. It's a series of quiet choices made when no one is clapping. And if you keep leaving the things that matter every time they stop feeling exciting, you'll spend your life chasing sparks, never tending a flame. So here's a quiet question. What would happen if you just stayed with the process long enough for it to teach you something? Stayed with the discomfort long enough for it to grow into clarity? Stayed with the daily practice long enough for it to become who you are? Because the life you want won't ask you to do more. It will ask you to be more honest about what you already know matters. It will ask you to stay in love with the process, to stay loyal to the invisible, to trust that small, steady devotion will do what big effort cannot. That kind of loyalty doesn't look heroic. It looks like waking up and beginning again. It looks like believing, not loudly but stubbornly, that you're building something worth staying for, and you are. Because one day you'll look back not on the days you gave everything, but on the days you gave something consistent, and that quiet loyalty will have shaped a life that doesn't just look good. It will feel true. Let this stay with you. You don't need to push more. You need to stay longer, because the life you want doesn't need your struggle. It needs your steady life. We often think of change as a thunderclap, sudden, powerful, impossible to miss. One moment you're one person, and the next you're someone else. A breakthrough, a revelation, a dramatic turning point. But most real change doesn't look like that. It doesn't begin in the roar of transformation. It begins in the soft, nearly invisible moments you choose to repeat, again and again. The first time you get up early to write. The first time you say no to what used to distract you. The first walk you take instead of reaching for the remote. These aren't grand events, but they are sacred beginnings, and they only matter if you repeat them, because change is not a decision. It's a direction. We all have moments of clarity, a spark of insight, a glimpse of what could be, but insight without repetition fades like morning. You don't become someone new in a single day. You become someone new by living one small moment differently, and then living that moment again. It's not the first push that builds strength. It's the thousandth. It's not the first apology that heals. It's the continued effort to speak honestly after. The person you wish to become is not locked behind one perfect act. They are waiting in the pattern you build through repetition. So ask yourself, what moments am I rehearsing? What thoughts do I keep letting in? What choices am I normalizing with my repetition? Because whatever you repeat, you reinforce. And whatever you reinforce becomes who you are. You don't even need to start big. In fact, small is better. Small is sustainable. Small goes unnoticed by resistance. Start with one choice. To breathe before reacting. To walk before working. To reflect before rushing. And then repeat. The secret no one tells you is that repetition is harder than intensity. Anyone can be motivated for a day. Anyone can change for a week. But can you stay faithful to what matters when no one is watching? Can you keep choosing alignment when life is inconvenient? This is where real change lives. Not in noise but in nuance. Every time you return to the new rhythm, even when it's uncomfortable, you're not just changing your habits. You're rewriting your identity. You're proving to yourself, I am someone who shows up. I am someone who follows through. I am someone who doesn't wait to feel ready to begin again. And that proof is powerful, because over time, repetition becomes confidence, and confidence becomes peace. The peace that comes from living a life in harmony with your values. A life that isn't waiting for a break, because it's already quietly breaking through, one steady moment at a time. Don't chase transformation. Chase return. Chase rhythm. Chase that quiet moment you once thought didn't matter, and give it your full heart. The future you hope for is built in secret, and its foundation is your quiet repetition. Let this truth root deeply in you. You don't become different all at once. You become different every time you repeat a better choice.